Good morning, everybody, or whatever time of day it might be where you're at. It's a nice morning here. I wanted to talk about something that I think is probably one of the most significant moments so far in the ECAT story. And these are based on some of the recent questions and answers that I have posed to Andrea Rossi on the Journal of Nuclear Physics, and not just myself actually, but we know that, well, we believe, I guess we can't say we know until we have seen everything with our own eyes, but based on what Andrea has said, he is now collaborating with a partner whose identity, of course, is unknown at this point, but who he characterizes as being his global licensee to create the ECAT NGU, which is, if you don't know, you probably know if you're following this, but the ECAT NGU is a electric generator that creates electricity out of, apparently, from the 0-point energy field, meaning it's a device, a box, who knows, something you can hold in your hand that can create energy 24/7 without any connection to an external source. So it doesn't need a battery, it doesn't need to be plugged into anything, it just puts out electricity somehow, which obviously would be an incredibly significant achievement. I believe it is an incredibly important achievement. I suppose the big problem is that we don't have them yet for sale. That's what we've been following for so long, is when can we get to that point? Anyway, so Andrea Rossi has said that over the last few months that he has been collaborating with this group, and he says that he's been working with top scientists, top engineers, to teach them how to make this ECAT NGU. And now this is very significant because for years and years, Andrea Rossi has never disclosed to an outside entity how his product works. He has worked within his own corporation, Leonardo Corporation, to develop the ECAT, but we don't know who is really in Leonardo Corporation. My belief is that it's been a fairly loose group of people, consultants that he has hired. I guess the only one person that we do know is, and that was from many years ago, is Fulvio Fabiani, who was an engineer who he worked with, I think, mostly prior to the ECAT NGU. Although, I see, there was this presentation in Sweden where Fulvio was there. I can't remember exactly what that was. Maybe that was the cork. No, I think it was still the heat. I can't remember exactly. It was 2017, I believe. Anyway, so we know that Fulvio is one person who he's collaborated with. I don't think that Fulvio has been continuously working with Andrea. But anyway, he was a consultant. He was someone who was hired to do a job, and I assume that there have been other people who have been in that same position. Anyway, so the latest development is, which I consider very significant. I asked a series of questions on the journal I'll post the exact questions and answers in the description. But the first question I asked was, is the licensee now using prototypes, experimenting with prototypes independently of yourself? Meaning, my question was, do they have ECAT prototypes in their possession that they're operating without Andrea himself being present? He said yes. Then I got a comment from a reader who asked me to ask another question, which was this: has the licensee been able to make prototypes based on your instruction independently of you? And Andrea's answer was yes. So we know that Andrea's told us that he has been giving lessons to these scientists from this partner organization and teaching them everything he knows about the ECAT, how to make them. He's given them tests, apparently, just to make sure that they know exactly what he knows. So the answer was yes. So they have been able to build them. The next question I asked was, do the prototypes that you've created, or that they've created based on your instructions, do they work in a manner that is satisfactory to you and to the licensee? Because I suppose they could have been making prototypes that don't work very well. And his answer was yes. So they're making working prototypes that apparently work according to expectations. And good. Okay, so they can make them on their own, and they work. And then there was another question today that again was, I think was very significant, is paraphrasing, has the licensee been able to make improvements on the prototypes, or are they just basically following your instructions? And Rossi's response was, yes, the partner is now making improvements on the prototypes. And he says that as part of the R&D process that he supposes will never end. So I think this is very significant, because it's like they have learned what he has taught them, and based on this knowledge that they have, then they have been able to make improvements, which I think is really important, because Andrea has worked, what is he? He's 75 now, I believe, all his life, and he's got the ECAT to this point. Now, what happens when Andrea is no longer here? Does he take some special knowledge with him to the grave? And I think this has been a concern for many people for many years. I've even heard people say that, he would never give information away. He'd rather die than let anybody know how the ECAT works, which I don't think is true anymore. I don't think it ever was true. I think he has always intended to leave a legacy. I don't think he would do his life's work just to have it disappear without a trace. So I think what is going on now, it's kind of like a passing of the torch. Obviously, I think Andrea will stay involved as long as he can, because that's just who he is. He's just a worker, and this is his life's work. But now I think we're at a stage where there are people on this planet who know how the ECAT works and know how to improve it, and who will now be continuing the R&D forever, I would assume. So I think we're at a very important part of the ECAT story now. Now, of course, we're not at the end of the story by any means. I mean, there are going to be many people who say, well, okay, sure, yeah, what a nice story this is. What a nice fiction this is. And I could understand skepticism. I think it's natural. I've seen enough myself. I've learned enough myself to be fully convinced that this is not a fiction. This is reality. I think that the best evidence for this being a reality is the Latino demonstration of last year, which I think has basically answered most of the questions that I've had, which have been, is this a practical energy source? Yes, it's a practical energy source. Anything that can drive a car for 6 hours and increase the charge of a battery. Yeah, that answered my question. But everyone's at different stages of belief. So I'm not going to be trying proving my point, but like I said, I think we're at the beginning of a very significant phase in the ECAT story. Now, none of this will really be for any good at all, except maybe as sort of an interesting diversion if we never see an ECAT and we never are able to operate an ECAT in our hands outside the control of Rossi and his partners. So, everybody is waiting, including myself, for the time when these products are available to the world. And, I certainly hope we get there soon. But I just imagine the pressure that's on this group now, whoever they are. I mean, they know obviously now, they know what they have. They know how significant it will be. They know how world-changing it will be. And I'm sure they're just strategizing about how do we actually bring this to light? How do we bring this to a world that is in desperate need of it without, I don't know if they're really going to be concerned about the economic ramifications of what they have, the economic and social and political ramifications, which we've talked about many times here. It's got to be on their mind. I wonder if, this organization will have something that everybody will want, and they have something that will I think will leave competition when it comes to energy development, energy production, will leave them in the dust, or could leave them in the dust. So that's every person will want one, every business will want one, every government will want one. For whatever purpose, we use energy for everything, almost literally any human activity in this modern world. So I think we're at a very interesting, very exciting, and very significant phase. We'll just have to continue following the story. And thank you very much.